Hello and welcome, everyone. Those who don't know me, my name is Gigi Alsadi, and I'm the Crane Fellow here at Prime Coalition. Really excited to be with you all today because we'll be diving into how startups can measure and communicate their greenhouse gas impact using the Crane tool, and also how Prime and accelerators can help make that process easier and more transparent. So today joining me is Sarah McKinnon from the Biomimicry Institute, who will share insights about our collaboration with the Ray of Hope Accelerator, and also my colleague Kelsey Litwin, who will be monitoring the chat and sharing different resources or helping with any questions you may have. So feel free to share. Finally, I'll be sharing a video recording and any useful resources in email after the session. So here's our quick roadmap. We'll start as usual with the latest Crane updates. Then I'll share with you some recent updates about our newest programming, so Prime's nonprofit advisory services pilot. And after that, Sarah and I will walk you through a case study where we'll share how Prime supported the Ray of Hope Accelerator and accelerator startups with potential impact assessment. Finally, we'll hand the spotlight to 3 startups themselves who will be sharing informative case studies about their impact approach. And we'll also wrap with a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in chat. Before we jump in, just a quick disclaimer that everything we share today is intended to support transparency and accountability in impact measurement. So nothing we share today should be intended to be as financial advice or any endorsement of individual startups. We're all here to share insights about building tools and approaches to impact measurement to support the broader community. With that in mind, let's start with Crane. So those who are newer, just a quick refresher. The Crane tool was built by Prime Coalition, and it is the only open access tool to help early stage climate innovators assess their future GHG impact. Some of its benefits include that it's free to use, it's quick to get started, and it's accessible for those who are beginners in this type of work. Overall, this tool is really useful for bringing those climate impact metrics that you need early into the conversation, and it's useful for regardless whether you're an investor or entrepreneur. And here's a quick snapshot of Crane's history. So, in a nutshell, we started in 2017 with the earliest methodology. And last year, we officially launched Crane version 2 with extensive updates based on Project Crane's methodology and also user feedback. Today, what I'd like to highlight is that with thousands of users around the world, Crane is evolving quite rapidly as new needs arise. And so if you'd like to support Crane's future, we're actively seeking both philanthropic supporters and strategic partners to keep our program free and useful for our broader impact community. Secondly, we also love you all to share your thoughts about how Crane has potentially impacted your work by filling out a short survey that Kelsey will share in the chat, and we'll also share it in the follow-up email in case you miss it. All right, and here's a quick overview to give you a sense how Crane has been growing over the past quarter. So we've recently added 6 new Crane models with everything from heat pump adoption in the UK to platforms for secondhand clothing. We're actually really excited to share these models because they're based on real-world investment case studies developed by Project Frame's content working group and other Frame members. So we're really grateful for our community, and you can check those models out on the Crane app by using the keyword search. On the community end, we're also happy to share that we now have over 6,000 registered Crane users and also a lively and growing community on LinkedIn. Now I'd like to share a few tidbits on how we're supporting our community with new advisory services. So to give you an overview, at Prime we are turning bold giving strategies and turning into climate action. And we have 3 main strategies. So first is catalytic investing. This is a strategy where we deploy charitable capital into climate solutions directly. Some of you may know Prime through our built, facilitated, and curated programs, and there's a lot more coming on that front, so feel free to stay tuned. Our second strategy is knowledge sharing, where we help investors and innovators make better decisions. This also includes the Crane tool, the Project Frame community, and our catalytic capital intermediation resource library that I really encourage you to check out. And then finally, our latest strategy is our nonprofit technical advising services. So this was created as we recognize that despite all of these resources that are being put out there, many organizations still lack the internal capacity or internal expertise to do this type of work or this type of forward-looking analysis on their own. And this is where we step in, is to practically apply our decade-long experience in impact measurement and helping all of these different organizations accelerate their climate impact work. So we support accelerators and investors in three key ways. The first one is guided modeling, which is how we supported the Ray of Hope Accelerator. So guided modeling is a hands-on program where we help ventures develop custom crane models, essentially for any type of technology. We bring workshops, we bring impact data, we bring one-on-one sessions, and at the end, folks are able to create a fully custom crane model that can be continually updated. The second one is deep dive assessments. So this is where we go a step further and we build much more detailed models. This is quite useful if you require multiple scenarios and sensitivity analysis and other optional methods that are generally outside of the Crane tool. And then lastly, the third one is impact case studies. This is where we help showcase the impact of their investments with ready-to-share narratives that are tailored for LPs, among other audiences. So feel free to learn more on our website or reach out to us in case you'd like to join the waitlist for 2026, or if you have any questions, we'd really love to chat with all of you. And with that, Sarah and I will share an example of Prime's guided modeling engagement where we supported startups at the Ray of Hope Accelerator. So in a nutshell, earlier this year, we worked with the Biomimicry Institute's Ray of Hope Accelerator to develop a case study about our guided modeling engagement last year. So in that engagement, we helped 4 nature-inspired startups build custom crane models tailored to their specific technologies and markets. With that, I'll pass the virtual stage to Sarah, who will introduce her accelerator and share more about the ventures themselves.
Perfect, no problem. Well, thank you everybody for having me. It's great to see you all on the call. I'm just going to give a quick overview of what our accelerator is all about. So we have been around for about 5 years and we've grown from a prize competition into a fully fledged 6-month accelerator in the last 2 years. So I'm excited to see the growth. What we focus on is supporting nature-inspired startups to scale systemic solutions towards the most pressing environmental challenges. So we work with 10 startups every year. They're normally within the earlier stage, so pre-seed to Series A. We work with startups from all over the world and across all different industries and sectors, which I think is a really strong value proposition for the work that we do, is that you get this exposure to different geographic markets and different technologies and different backgrounds, which is really exciting to see across our portfolio. And given that we are working with nature-inspired startups, a lot of our technologies end up having this pretty deep tech background, so a strong science and technology foundation. So we look for a technology readiness level of around 4, just that you know who we're looking for. So hopefully there's some additional startups on the call here that those pieces align with work that you're doing. So if we jump to the next slide, I'll just share a little bit more about the depths of what we do within our 6-month program. So we launch next week, which is very exciting. So September 2nd is our kickoff date for our 2025 cohort, and that will run through until February 2026. So that 6-month duration. Through the program, we provide $15K in non-dilutive funding, which we're really proud to be able to share, and hopefully we can get that number up and up and up over the years as we continue to scale. From the additional services that we provide, we have valuated that at around a $50,000 valuation of services, one to which include the work that we did with Crane and Prime Coalition, which we were really proud and excited to get that case study and that work done. One additional component that within that is our 1 week that we gather in person. So the 6-month accelerator is virtual, but we do 1 week in person where we kick off with a startup pitch event and networking session at New York Climate Week, which is set for September 25th this year. So if any of you are in New York Climate Week, please head over to our website and find our registration link. I'll share it in the chat later on. So you can be sure to come and meet with some of our 2025 cohort and maybe some of our alumni. And then we follow that with a 4-day nature retreat. So we head up to upstate New York. We bring 2 founders from each of the 10 startups that we support within that week, with the intention to reconnect founders to their climate mission, which as early stage founders, that can also often be left behind as we're in a fundraising battle within our current climate. Reconnect to nature, which is a pillar of the biomimicry practice, and then reconnect to a peer group of community members who are founders who are in the trenches with you that you can lean on for support throughout the accelerator and beyond. So one of those pieces then, so for the rest of the 6-month accelerator that's virtual, we have 3 kind of core program pillars that we work through, which is our community. So getting exposed to the larger nature-inspired biomimicry network that we have within the Biomimicry Institute, working on your communication strategies. So how do you convert deep tech nature inspiration into a narrative and storytelling to attract investors from every different corner of the world and sector that you can think of. And then one of the main pillars that's really holds true to me and from the work that I've done in my past is our impact pillar. So really helping startups look at what is their environmental impact beyond just their technology themselves. And it's something that's always been a hard nut to crack. So working with Crane and the team and the technology that they've built has been a huge value add within that specific pillar. So excited to hear from all the startups to see the value that they got out of that work. So that was our launch as of last year to work with Crane for our impact pillar. So if you jump to the next slide, you'll see just a quick overview of our current portfolio. We have our 2025 cohort yet to add. So there's another 10 startups to be added here. So from the startups that you'll hear from today, you'll see their logos on this page, which is very exciting to be able to hear from all of our alumni. But we have about 49 startups across all different sectors and technologies, as you can see, up to about 15 countries represented. We have distributed around 750K in non-dilutive funding, which, as I said, we're hoping to expand on that. And one number I'm super proud of, and you'll see on the call here, is that 35% of our portfolio companies are women-led. It's a number that you rarely get to see within this climate tech space, and it's a number that we're really, really proud of. So I'm excited for you all to hear from Ilse and Rachel, who are on the call today. So yeah, we go to the next slide. So we will be jumping into our startups. So Broker, sorry, my screen is split. So Broker Mineral Resources Corporation are based out of Canada, harnessing electrogenic microorganisms to produce battery metals sustainably. I'm not going to jump into the nitty-gritty of it all because, Rachel, I know that you're going to be able to do a far better job than I will. So I'll just give the quick overview, and as we get into the case studies for each, I'll let you explain a little further. So Broker are based out of Canada. Then we have Fiberly, based out of France and Argentina. So they are turning discarded cellulosic textiles into fibers that mimic the molecular architecture and function of natural cotton. So from a biomimicry perspective, truly understanding the structure of cotton and mimicking at a micro scale to enable the fiber itself to contain the same properties, the same textures as the natural cotton fiber would have. We'll jump to the next slide. We have Sentient Bio, who's based in New Zealand. So hopefully you'll be hearing from Jonathan today. It will probably be 5 a.m. his time, so please give him a little bit of grace. But they are creating an insect-inspired biosensors to rapidly analyze chemical compounds. And they're tackling industries from from food and ag and spoilage within that space, in med tech, understanding what types of chemistries can be detected in early treatments. So it's a real platform technology that we're excited to see where they scale into as they grow. And then Source is our final startup that we worked with throughout our case study with Crane as of last year. And they are based in Florida. And they are a seaweed-based startup, so they're creating a novel refinery process to transform seaweed waste into high-performing cellulose nanomaterials. So I will leave it there with our four, and we can move into our case studies.
Thank you, Sarah. Before I move into the process piece, I know you may not be able to stay until the Q&A session, but we do have a quick question in the chat. Somebody is asking, when you say nature-based startups, do you mean only bio-based, or bio and chemistry or physics-based startups that are also nature-based?
Great question. I hope I didn't say nature-based. I hope I said nature-inspired. We are very careful with that word. We know that nature-based has a very specific connotation within the climate tech space. So thank you for this question. You'll find more information, and I'll link it in the chat too, where we go through our criteria for selection on our website. You can find more information there. But we take more of a larger umbrella approach to nature-inspired innovation and don't specifically follow a dogma for biomimicry or nature-based or nature tech or bio-based. There are several connotations to definitions around those phrasings. So what we really look for is the fundamental nature inspiration. So whether that's a biochemistry, where that's a mechanical function, whether that's a process orientation, have you done the deep research into understanding the nature inspiration behind that within context for that specific biological model, within the technology sector that you are hoping to apply that inspiration to? So oftentimes within our application process, you'll see that we'll ask for literature to really understand the depth of the nature inspiration behind the technology itself. So we don't have any specific criteria to bio or chemistry or physics. It's more the depth of the research of understanding the nature inspiration itself. I hope that answers your question.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. If you have any more questions, feel free to share them in the chat. All right, so to go back to our guided modeling process, so this process, we see it as highly suitable for a group of ventures or portfolio companies, especially where things like standardization, comparability, and flexibility in model adjustment is quite important. So to achieve this, how we approach guided modeling is we first get everyone aligned by delivering a custom workshop and several pre-reads like the methodology guidance. So afterwards, we conduct the initial research for each and every startup and draft Crane models, which we then refine with ventures using worksheets and one-on-one expert review sessions. In the end, the final result is we together develop a finalized Crane model that ventures can use right away for things like fundraising or communication. So that the slide really illustrates our process. And as you know, just a few notes about the key outcomes. Quantifying the impact potential can be incredibly useful for climate-focused or nature-inspired startups, especially when they're seeking to validate the impact with investors and other audiences. So what it helps is that it forces them to think, the process of impact measurement forces them to think about market volumes and impact pathways. So many teams in our history also were able to refine their go-to-market strategies alongside of measuring their impact. Most importantly, the real value isn't just the final model, but also that long-lasting skill set that startups get from this sort of engagement, which they can use to refine their model on Crane in future and communicate the impact long after our engagement. And with that, we'll start with the second and probably the most exciting part of our webinar. We've invited 3 founders from our last engagement with the Biomimicry and Activate accelerators, who'll share mini case studies building upon the crane models that we actually helped them develop last year. So just a quick reminder about our key methodology. So this is the logic that the crane tool and the project frames consensus-driven methodology follows. So to summarize, we take the net unit impact, scale it by its volume, and we get the total GHG impact. So in this showcase, founders will be sharing their potential impact assessment process, which focuses on the technology level impact. That's the one shown at the top, and it's generally more suitable for early stage ventures. And here's the outline of the case study. So the template that we shared with founders essentially first helps set the stage by sharing the solution overview and unit impact. So founders will be able to share how they assess their unit impact. Next, they'll walk us through their market volumes, outlining the key assumptions and the parameters behind them. And finally, they will close with a summary of their GG impact potential. And with that, I'm thrilled to introduce the three founders that we worked with last year, and they'll spend about 10 minutes walking us through their impact case studies. So first up is Ilse Nava Medina. She's the co-founder and CEO of Gel Matter, a New York-based startup that is developing sustainable animal-free gels with various applications like skincare, coding, and healthcare. Next, we'll hear from Rachel Simister, who is a microbiologist and a molecular biologist with over 15 years of experience in academia and industry, and she's the president at Broker Mineral Resources. And finally, we have Jonathan Good, who is the CEO of Sentient Bio. Jonathan is a serial entrepreneur and a business leader on a path to transform the food industry. With that, Rachel, Ilse, the floor is yours, and feel free to share your screen with your impact case study if you'd like.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good early morning for everyone. Thank you to the Prime Coalition and to the Crane team for inviting us to present and share about our case study. My name, as she mentioned, Gigi mentioned, my name is Ilse Nava Medina. I'm the CEO of Gel Matter, and I was happy to work to assess quantitatively how our technology could make a positive impact on the industry. So as an overview, Gigi mentioned, we are making synthetic mucus materials that can be used for different applications, but our initial market is in the skincare. So we are avoiding the use of animals to create and have analogs that replicate the mucus that is found in the animals. We are our mission is to make these materials inspired by animal mucus and have sustainable alternatives so that the animals are not touched, are not used in the process, bringing a cost-effective and cruelty-free alternative that protect the biodiversity but also reduce the environmental impacts of animal harvesting. We are a startup in the pre-seed stage. We are headquartered in New York City in the US, and we're a team of chemists and material scientists that are working to bring these new materials to commercialization. We, as I mentioned, we are inspired by nature. So our goal is to make equivalents to animal mucus, really mimicking both the chemistry and the properties of the animal mucus. And for that, we're using green chemistry and we're using natural building blocks, amino acids, sugars, and other natural ingredients that bring the formulations to reality. And we have our materials designed for enhanced biocompatibility, better performance, and designed also for biodegradability as well. Happy, as Gigi has mentioned, we have been part of the Activate Accelerator, and we have also been supported by the Biomimicry Institute and the Ray of Hope Accelerator. So we learn about, we work with the Crane tool with the two accelerators that we were part of, and we have more supporters in our journey. And as our technology is a platform technology, so then we have different applications across the industries. But like I mentioned, the first market that we are focused on is the skincare ingredients. But later, as you see here, we can branch for other markets and enter other markets. But for the purpose of this case study, we only focus on the skincare impact. The solution, our solution, as I have mentioned, we are looking at, we're using the chemistry to create these analogs. One of our most exciting parts of our technology is that we can get the material as a powder synthetic mucus analog that can be used directly by the skincare companies, and they can use it in creams, gels, and serums according to their needs. And so those are buyers, yet our end users, which are any of us that is using any cream or a skincare product that is seeking a better cruelty-free and effective skincare, will be benefited from our technology. With this technology, you also avoid variability and contamination risks that come from the use of any animal source, and that is very valuable for the end consumer biocompatibility. So for our solution, we some parameters that we take into consideration is that we are looking at a time frame between 2026 and 2050. And we are assessing the potential impact. We are a manufacturing company, and the sales unit that we are using is kilograms of mucus. And how our technology helps the environment is by avoiding emissions that normally come from the use of animal mucus. And our solution brings a direct impact. And we use, as the team has shared, we have used the crane model for all of these assessment that we work together on. So for the unit impact, which are the initial key assumptions and parameters for the model, is that what currently the market has, or the incumbent solution, is that people harvest snails to produce the mucus. And this incumbent solution is dynamic. We projected it as a dynamic parameter. And we have a parameter, uncertainty parameter of 90%. And this is based on the earliest stage and limited life cycle analysis data that is present for the snail mucus. And we are as well assuming that there are 17% emission savings versus what the snail farming emissions come per unit. And we are, just as I mentioned, this model
I'm sorry, Ilse, we lost you again just for 1 second.
No problem. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think we missed you after other section.
Other section, yeah. So the other comment is that with our process, that it's in the earliest stage, there is definitely room for more optimization and synthesis or changes in our process for a cheaper, faster approach that could also bring different some change in the unit emissions that we do over time. But the fact that we have this model where we can change our inputs is very useful, as we can remodel later on in time as we are making changes to our own technology. And so in terms of comparing how our solution is better or worse than what's already out there, we know that in the life cycle category, we are we are comparing it to two parameters there, which is the raw material extraction and the material processing. For both of these parts of a typical LCA, we know that we're going to reduce the emissions both on the process of farming, snail farming, the mucus extraction, mucus purification, filtration, drying, and packaging of phases, as well as the marginal additional emissions that come during the production of the material. And so we have assumed that our unit impact is in kilograms of carbon dioxide per kilogram of mucus that is produced. Initially in the 2026 is going to be 0.5 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalents. And that will change over time to 0.17, the 0.17 kilograms in 2050. And we're considering that its unit impact is decreasing over time. And as we integrate these into models and what's the market, the serviceable available market, we know that the global snail beauty products market size is growing per year, and it's close to reaching like 1 billion by 2028. And so when I was we have the SAM market, the overall market, and so we are making assumptions that conservative assumptions that we can capture 0.05 of that available market, and we use that assumption to calculate what are our projected emissions reduction. And this is some of the results with this SOM that we assume. And overall, our total GHG impact is concluding to, or it's a projected cumulative reduction of 15 tons of 15 tons of carbon dioxide equivalents projected to be reduced in this 2026 to 2050 period of time. This is positive. It's a positive assessment because it's shown that we can reduce the emissions by replacing the animal harvesting. Yet this is only one indicator that we can use to showcase our impact. Beyond the greenhouse gas emissions, we know that there are other impact assessments that we can run in our case, such as the biodiversity preservation, the animal welfare, and supply chains reductions in the emissions as well. But it's very good to know that we have this tool right now to really model some of the impact in terms of carbon dioxide emissions. And we are happy to continue working with the model to even expand it into the other markets that are applicable for our particular technology. And but we are very happy to know that we can count with this tool for more additional modeling. And with that, thank you everyone for your attention. Happy to stay in touch with the audience. And thank you again to the Crane team.
Thank you so much, Ilse. And with that, I'll invite Rachel to share about Broker.
Hi, yep. So I'm Rachel. I'm the president of Broker Mineral Resources. Oh, hold on. I need to go down. Yeah. So Broker Mineral Resources, we're a seed-funded startup company. We're based in British Columbia, Canada, and we work in the biotechnology and natural resources sector. Our focus is on developing sustainable biological processes to extract critical battery metals such as nickel, cobalt, manganese from mineral ores. And our approach uses natural bacteria to break down the minerals and release the metals, followed by purification methods that also use bio-inspired materials to capture those metals. And so the method reduces waste, chemical use, and carbon emissions compared to conventional extraction processes. So yeah, as I just mentioned, our focus is on developing sustainable biological processes to extract battery metals. There's a nice picture here. I forgot to put the source, which was Ask Nature. They made us a nice diagram to show how these bacteria work in nature to release metals such as nickel, cobalt, manganese. And basically the technology would be purchased by mining companies, refiners, battery metal suppliers, and it would also be used by mining operators and metallurgical teams. And so, yeah, it really allows the recovery of metal from low-grade ores whilst reducing waste, chemicals, and also carbon emissions. So the Crane model was really useful for us because we had done an internal GHG sort of analysis, and it was great to get like an external validation and make sure, you know, that we're not way off with our numbers here. And so, yeah, for our model, we basically had a time frame we used was 2025 to 2050. And we assessed the potential impact within the mineral manufacturing / natural resource sector. And we're measuring our impact based on 1 ton of CO2 equivalents per 1 ton of nickel that's produced. And our emissions are actually based on the avoidance of emissions that would have been produced by the incumbent technology for the same amount of metal. So yeah, onto our unit impact. So some assumptions and parameters. So the incumbent technology is something that's called HPAL, and that stands for high pressure acid leaching. And that has very high energy intensities because it's typically supplied by captive coal-fired power plants. And so the incumbent emissions are modeled to decline over time because it does actually reflect some sector-wide improvements. That's similar to our solution. We also had assumed that more efficient processing, cleaner grid, and sort of transportation by 2050. So that's why we also, for the solution, have a dynamic initial emissions projection. And then the uncertainty parameter, we had 25% because we have a high confidence in the solution emissions data. And then finally, our model, as I mentioned, it assumes that the emissions are eliminated in the beneficiation, processing, purification, refining, and transportation life cycle phases. And there's a little more detail here on these different life cycle categories. As I mentioned, most of the emissions reduction for us comes from the mineral processing. And we assume that most of the emissions reductions here are effectively 100% because we don't require that heat, pressure, vigorous mixing of the incumbent technology, the HPAL. And so I mentioned there are some other categories in here like transportation, purification, refining, and we don't have any effect in manufacturing use phase or end of life. And so we assume marginal no emissions effect of those. And so on to some of the results. So for the unit impact, so basically how many emissions our solution avoids compared to the incumbent. So in 2025, that came out as about 29 tons of CO2 per tons of metal. And in 2050, that would be 10 tons of CO2 per tons of metal. So now if we do the market assumptions and parameters. So for the SAM, basically we have a growth, and that's primarily driven by the electrification of sort of economy. So mostly coming from the use of nickel in batteries for electric vehicles. So the assumptions here for the incumbent are 600,000 tons of nickel in 2027, and that grows annually by 7.5%, as I mentioned, due to sort of electrification of the economy predictions. And then in terms of the sum, this is where our model is a little different because the nice thing with Crane is that if you have data and your own sort of numbers, you can actually put them in there and use it that way as well. So some assumptions that we had deployment years 2025, uncertainty parameter 25%. The market capture is scaling from a pilot to 950,000 tons of nickel by 2050. And the justification of that sum comes from there's going to be increasingly strict environmental regulations. And so those are actually precluding those new HPAL incumbent techs from actually being built. And there's prediction that there's going to be a desire for low carbon metals in battery manufacturing. And so once the tech for us is demonstrated, our technology, we're assuming that we're going to capture that new demand for greener metals, basically. And so, yeah, so we did have some internal numbers that Crane helped us like put in there, that was really great. So then the results from that. So as you can see here, the SAM and the growth is projected based on emissions target. The SAM has that 25% uncertainty with those, you can see the low, mid, higher there, and then it's based on the plans for scaling. And then the final slide is the total GHG impact. And so if we roll everything up all into one, for us, we basically end up with about 9.7 megatons of carbon equivalents annual impact in 2050. That's based on avoided emissions. And then for cumulative, it's 204 megatons CO2 equivalents. And that's the sum of all the avoided emissions across those 2025 to 2050. So yeah, this was the Crane was great. It validated our internal modeling, made sure that we're not totally crazy with these numbers. And so yeah, team was great to work with, and yeah, we were really, really happy with the Crane tool. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And our final speaker is Jonathan. Thank you so much for joining us so early, or should I say late for you?
I'm definitely calling it early.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks so much for having me. Let me share my screen here.
Looks great.
That looks good. Excellent. So yeah, so I'm Jonathan. I'm the CEO here at Sentient Bio, and we're a sensor company. And as the others here, part of the Biomimicry Ray of Hope Institute Accelerator. And our premise starts from the incredible power of insects. And we've probably all had the experience of having a nice ripe piece of fruit in our fruit bowl at home. And incredibly, those little fruit flies turn up from nowhere and buzz around. That's because insects, their whole world is designed around chemical information, and they have an incredible, discriminating, fast chemosensory system that enables them to tune into key compounds that are really important for them, and that's around their food, mating, the pheromones they use to communicate with each other, and that's what we're borrowing from, and we are producing a insect nose on a chip or insect antennae on a chip. So we're combined. It's our team based here in Auckland, New Zealand, as a combination of biochemists, structural biologists, and AI engineers. And what we are doing is mimicking how insects smell. So we're using synthetic biology to produce these receptors that insects use to discriminate and navigate the world so effectively. We're embedding those into artificial membranes on a flow cell or small sensor device. We're tracking the information about how those receptors interact with the compounds in the world around us, and then using AI to process those signals and measure key compounds in order to provide measurement where it matters. And as Sarah mentioned earlier, we're a platform play, but our first and obsessive interest is in food. That's where my background comes from, and in the food industry as well. And for the food industry, what we're doing is incredibly powerful. So they're really, I guess, struggling with the opportunity of working with more and more natural ingredients in an era of climate change. And so the way that our solution works for quality control is all the way from the field through production to be able to provide chemical information quickly to enable people to make fast decisions about perishable, products and potential products. And we like to think what we're doing is unlocking the power of food. We're helping the world make more and better food and put food to its best possible use. And the great thing about working with the Crane team has been to think about that analytically and to start to understand sort of the scale and value of the opportunity that we're working on. And so with food producers, they at large scale have these challenges of mass ingredients coming through and spotting the taints, the off notes, measuring the sort of key biomarkers to make sure food is at its best and that it's getting put to its best use. And I guess in general, when we talk about food loss and food waste, it's the opposite of those things. It's where those things aren't understood and product is manufactured out of spec. Things are not used when they should have been, and so they degrade, they oxidize, they go off, and they're wasted. And that's, from the farm through production, the source of massive volumes of food waste. So our scope with and our work with Crane, we've looked across the same time horizon as the others, looking out to 2050, and we have focused on agriculture and food manufacturing, and our sales units are based on the tons of food products that we are enabling. And so that's where we're, like Broker, working on avoided emissions, helping the world reduce the massive emissions that we have today. But our pathway there is a little bit different. We're facilitating the change there by providing sensing tools that enable large agricultural and food manufacturing businesses to make better decisions. And so in terms of what the assumptions and parameters look like, the sort of incumbent technology is really around sort of discipline, I would say. I mean, there's a lot of quality control focus on looking at things, assessing things. There's sort of specifications for smell as well, where humans are ostensibly trained and tried to target these things. And then there's lab testing, which takes a much longer period of time than the time available to make fast decisions. But what we see from the data is that in general, the world is getting better at managing food in these early parts of the value chain. And so there's a sort of 0.34% year-on-year improvement that's occurred over the course of the past 8 years. And we've extrapolated that out over the course of the next 25. We have a high uncertainty parameter because it's an early stage technology. And then in terms of the unit impact, we're impacting the raw materials. We have pilots, and we've completed a full pilot in food assessment in the field. We're also involved in materials processing, so there's a small impact, I guess, of adding our sensing technology, but there's a significant potential reduction in GHGs from improving the way materials processing works in food manufacturing. That flows through to the manufacturing itself, and then the distribution, where shifting from first in, first out and thinking about when food can best be used and tracking it can make a really big difference as well. So in terms of unit impact, we start today at a sort of 0.03 tons of CO2 per food product impact, based on our initial single compound focus detection. And what we have modeled is, over the course of the next 8 years, as our technology roadmap deepens out the information that we're providing to these food producers, we're able to substantially increase that to enable them to halve the waste that's occurring in those early production phases. And then in the background, we've modeled the continuing improvement of the incumbent solutions. And so we have a unit impact curve that you can see on the right here. In terms of how that translates into volumes, the food industry is absolutely huge. The sort of global food and beverage market, just the testing aspect of it, not the underlying food itself, is projected to reach 31 billion in 2027. And so in terms of our serviceable obtainable market, we've looked at that starting from our deployments this year with a average level of uncertainty, and then we worked really hard with the Crane team to think about what the market saturation points look like. And obviously food is really diffuse. There's, and we're democratizing technology, but the question is how penetrating can we be? And it's interesting to see, we looked at this from a couple of different agri solutions that play into food, from, John Deere to sort of Bayer. And, the companies are able to achieve a sort of upper bound of 25% market penetration. So we've assumed that as the sort of technology level that we can achieve. When we do that, we see some really, really substantial opportunities with our serviceable obtainable market. And then putting that in the lens of the GHG impact, we see a sort of incredible effect of the potential to reduce global greenhouse gases by 1.6 gigatons in 2050. So I think the sort of the insight and reflection here is, we're all sort of all vaguely aware of the sort of size and scale of food loss. We don't always connect that through to the carbon footprint of it. And we guess we're modeling the impact of the technology here, and whether it's us or us and other solutions, the scale of what we can achieve by reducing food loss for the climate and the planet is really, really inspiring and certainly motivating to our team. And so this has been really awesome for us. We're incredibly appreciative of the work from the Crane team and from Gigi helping us on this. And I think it's just helped sort of contextualize and reinforce the impact that we can have.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. That was an incredible presentation, considering you've probably woken up like 20 minutes ago. All right, so just a quick last note. First of all, of course, virtual round of applause to all the founders who share their impact stories with us today. Really appreciate your time and your effort. Also, don't hesitate to contact us in case you'd like to explore Crane or need any support with impact modeling, or if you have any questions, suggestions, partnership opportunities. With that, I'll open up to a quick Q&A session. I'll be staying here for another few minutes in case anyone has any last minute questions, since we're almost over time, but feel free to stay, or if you have to leave for another meeting, thank you so much for being here with us today.